Hey, y'all, welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. I'm author CJ Peterson. My co-host over here is author Michael Scott Clifton. Today we're going to talk about passive versus active writing. What is it and how does it affect your writing and how does it annoy people to no end? We will find out in just a few minutes. Mike, how was your week? We were just talking about it,
Yeah.
and speaking of annoying to no end, go for it and fill
Yeah.
them in.
Well, uh, we had a big storm that came through here about a month and a half ago, and I think that same storm you were talking about a month or so ago, CJ, where you had all the tornadoes and everything. Anyway, a lot of people were like electricity, big damage area wide. Lots of people lost electricity. We really didn't have that much damage. Had a few limbs down, and but I guess what I've come to realize is just because you don't have storm damage the very day or day after the storm doesn't mean that those happy returns won't keep coming at some point later. And that's what's happened to Melanie and I. So on my property, I've had limbs fall that have broken off and fell down that were damaged by the storm. And as luck would have it, or bad luck, if you want to call it that, they keep falling on the corner edge of my property. So 3 days ago, I finally managed to haul off with it. I got up early. Took me a couple hours to cut up the fallen tree with a chainsaw, haul it off to a burn pile. Of course, again, while we're speaking, it couldn't have happened during some of the earlier cooler days. Of course, summer is not cool, but we've had the hottest, muggiest days of the year for the last
Of
3 or 4
course.
days. And even getting up early doesn't really save you that much from that misery. So,
No, it was literally 87 degrees last night
right.
at like I think 11 o'clock. So no.
And when I came in, looked like I'd taken a shower. I was just drenched in sweat. Got it done. Deep breath. Moved on. A day later, I look out there, and this tree that was damaged, part of it's hanging down, and we were talking about like hinges on a door, and is fallen down. Had been that way for a while. It was dangerous, but it was lower, and it impeded, like mowing and stuff like that, and plus it was dangerous. So I had to start from ground level and cut up and get as far as I can. I couldn't actually cut the broken limb off because it's just too far above me. I have to get a professional tree cutter to do that. Got that done, came in drenched in sweat, looks like I dove into a pool. Took a deep breath. Then yesterday I was watering flowers. I happened to glance to my right, and lo and behold, in the exact same spot is part of another huge tree that has fallen down. So today, this morning, I got up and I cut as much of it up as I could, because it's actually in a dangerous position where you can't cut too much of it off, otherwise it may fall on you because it's propped up in the crook of a tree. So tomorrow I got a friend with a 4-wheel drive. We're gonna hook a tow chain onto it and try to pull it off and pull it down so I can cut it up. But that's 3 times in exact the same spot. Now I'm not an odds maker like in Vegas or something like that, or a sports book, but I would take odds. What are the odds that that would have happened in the same spot 3 different times over the space of less than a week? So, needless to say, I will not be buying any lottery tickets anytime soon, nor will I be walking under tree limbs if I can help it anytime soon, because it seems like I need to wear a rabbit's foot for a while. But
Kind of like moments like this makes me not miss our acreage.
and I wouldn't mind doing it. I mean, it's not bad. I don't mind hard work. It's just so hot and muggy.
Well, Mommy says hi, and she also says, "Do not
No,
tempt fate."
no, no. Anyway, that's my week. Don't have a couple of book events are coming up in August, real big ones. The Bell County Comic Con, which is in Belton, Texas, and the week following that is the Tulsa, which is Oklahoma Comic Con, which is in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
I've never been to the Bell County Comic Con. This will be the first time I've attended it. We were at the Oklahoma Comic Con last year, and it was fabulous.
Awesome.
Yep. So that's what's going on, CJ.
Awesome. Well, our Canada friends celebrated Canada Day this week. And then tomorrow, of course, for the American friends, we have, of course, 4th of July. Independence Day is tomorrow. Yay! That's America's birthday
Oh,
for the.
I need to add one thing before I get in serious trouble, CJ.
Mhm.
That is Melanie and I's 44th wedding anniversary is this
Yes,
Friday.
that would have gotten you in serious trouble. Happy
And
anniversary.
I would have remembered that except for the trees. And
Eee,
then, I'm
that
still
would have
losing
gotten
from the
you in
heat.
some serious trouble.
Yes.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And you even remembered the number. So very good job. But yes, happy anniversary. Very excited for you guys. For us, we have the next one coming up for us is Piney Woods Comic Con. The guest coming up will be Carla Perez, who played in Power Rangers. Kevin Sorbo will also have his amazing VIP experience. Lizzie Freeman and Amanda Hufford from the Amazing Digital Circus. And the incredible Peter Kalamis, voice actor, will also be there. We'll be at Piney Woods Comic Con in Lufkin, Texas. And that will be in August on the 16th or 17th and 18th. Why do I keep wanting to put the 16th? 17th and the 18th of August in Lufkin, Texas. Cannot wait. Mommy Rolla says, woohoo, yeah. So she'll be able to join us as well. So cannot wait. The Magic Making Mischief team will be there. So we're gonna have lots of fun there. So bummed you won't be able to join us, Mike, but you cannot do 3 in a row. I do not blame Melanie for saying no on that one.
Oh, oh,
That's a lot.
we may not have had
But
the 45th anniversary if it had done
but
that.
have no fear. Mombi and I will be running around making mischief of our own. So make sure to come and join us. I know we'll be doing a magic making mischief meetup. I do believe it will be a Harry Potter meetup, correct, Mombi? Yep. Mombi says, do not miss the magic. I think it's supposed to be magic making meetup there with the M3 team. I'll be doing Ravenclaw. Mombi will be doing her Slytherin. And so make sure to wear your Harry Potter and we'll find out what we got going on there. Again, that's the 17th and 18th of August in the Piney Woods Comic Con in Lufkin, Texas on the 17th and 18th. Do not miss it. Okay, but now we're going to talk about passive and active writing. And why does this annoy people to no end, Mike?
Well, anytime you lapse into passive writing, from a reader standpoint, it gets boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's static writing. It's slow. It doesn't, and it's just you know, it's just it really turns off readers,
Mm-hmm.
and writers have to be very cognizant of slipping into passive voice. It's very easy to do. It's the critique group I belong to. And I think most active writers, they have editors, critique groups, or partners that they critique with, that will read each other's stuff. That's one of the main things you look for when you want someone to critique or edit your writing, your manuscript. And if you're the one doing the critiquing, that's one of the main things you look for as a critiquer or as an editor, is to see if the author has lapsed into passive voice.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's very easy to do.
Well, one example of that is when they talk about something they had done this, had done that. In other words, you're supposed to do that show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
When you slip into passive, you are telling, you are not showing, you are slipping into the past versus keeping them into the present. So you are had done this instead of doing it. So make sure you're
Right.
keeping them present and you are showing them, not telling them. Mommy did do a quick comment that I need to share. Yes, multiple cons in a row can be stressful, never more than 2 back to back again. She did 4.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness.
Yes, be very careful with that, and that does annoy people when you're currently in a story and you're going in a story and you've got you've got it going and it's on a track. So imagine you're on a train and it's going on this track and you're telling the story and you've got it going and you got it going. All of a sudden you derail it with, oh, and had they did this and it was over here and it's like, wait a minute, weren't we on this track over here?
Anytime you find that your writing is populated with a lot of was,
Hmm.
had, and were words, um, those are signposts that you are edging into passive writing territory. Anytime you see that again your writing's populated with a lot of gerunds, which are words that end in ing, particularly when you start a sentence with a gerund, with an ing. You know, you're lapsing into passive voice. What what I do when I'm critiquing other folks' work, and I probably should do it on my own, is I circle every time I come across was, had, or were. Another signpost is the use of adverbs, ly words, that are 90% of the time empty words that are a form of telling, not showing. And in my experience, most ly words or adverbs can just be deleted out of hand, and it not only doesn't affect the writing, it actually makes your writing more powerful. I think a rule I read once was that if you have more than one adverb or ly word per 300 words, then that's too many. And so that's another signpost you can look at is adverbs. And in active voice, you don't want to see a lot of using the word that. You don't want to use the word that. You don't want to use the word this. You don't want to overuse conjunctives like as, which it slows the writing down. And anytime you slow your writing down, it's going to make it more passive, and it's definitely going to make it less active. And that's not to say that you don't ever not use a was or a were or a had or an adverb. It's just that you need to be very cognizant that you are using them, because again, I can use my own self as an example. You know, you're writing and you're hitting a really good point where you're just zipping those words out left and right. And when you go back and you look at them and you see, oh wow, I've kind of lapsed into passive writing. And the reason you know that is because again, it's populated with a bunch of was, had, were, that, as, adverbs, lys, words that completely. Those are all signposts for passive writing. That doesn't mean you don't ever use them, because you have to at times. It means you just need to be cognizant of them.
Yeah, that is a famous one that I use a lot. So what I do is I do my writing and then I will put the word that in my search engine, and I will literally go through in every sentence that has the word that, I will read it. If I can pull it out, I pull it out. And 9 out of 10 times I can. One of the famous quotes that always has stuck with me is the Robin Williams in the Dead Poet Society using the word very. And he talks about the lazy writing with the word very. And he has a lot of good points in that particular movie. And I love that about him, about it being very lazy. Very is lazy writing. You know, you can use so many other words in the English language. Mambi says was a good point about that you were making with a lot of the words that you were talking about. She also said writing with self-awareness of your vocabulary. When you have a very good editor, very, I use the word very, when you have a good editor, my editor writes as if she's looking over my shoulder. And I love that about her. She can be cruel, but I'd rather she was cruel with a red pen than my readers were. And when you have one that points out all of your faults or your picadillos that you have, it's a lot easier to find them out yourself. Another thing that I use a thing called Voice Dream Reader, where I will put my manuscript line by line with Voice Dream Reader, and I will have it playing in my head, and it will go line by line, and it will tell me, and it will read to me. So it will also let me pick those out. Another thing I do is my husband and I will read it aloud, and he will read it with me, and we will go line by line as well with the font bumped up. So we will catch some things as well. But that also allows me to pick out different things where it picks out the active versus the passive writing. But you need to stick with the show and don't tell. And I cannot hammer that enough. When you tell them versus showing them, it pulls them away from the story. You want to keep your reader immersed in that story. When you start with the hads and the was and the wers, you're pulling them. It's like they were so immersed in the story. All of a sudden, you start the was and the wers and the hads, and it's just like, Nope, sorry, we need to go back here. And you've just all of a sudden given them whiplash. Keep them in that story. If you can keep them in that story, you will keep them on that emotional roller coaster.
It's if you get into the habit, it's not as it's really not as hard as what one might think to write in an active voice versus passive voice. It's really not. For example, take a sentence that starts with gerund. Walking through the park, I saw Sue. Now that is passive voice. You started the sentence with a gerund. But you can turn the sentence around and you can say, I entered the park and spied Sue. Now, which one is more active?
Well, that also depends on what voice you're using.
Right.
If you're using a third person voice versus a first person voice, that does also play a part into how you're writing as well.
Right. But if you're writing first person, which is difficult to do because of what I found is because of tense issues, making
But
you
hands down,
right,
the second one is definitely the one to choose.
right, right. It's if once you get into the habit of writing an active voice, it becomes easier. It does. And again, I'll use myself as an example because when I started writing, I absolutely knew nothing. By the way, I used an adverb there. Absolutely did not know what I was doing, and had no clue. And anyway, uh, through attending writers' workshops, through advice from authors that I respected, and through just actually getting down to the act of just writing, and letting others look at it and tell me what they thought, critiquing, for example. I've learned how, at least I think I've learned, I think I've done a pretty good job of learning how to write with a more active voice and with less and avoid those passive pitfalls that we often get into, and you can slip into them very easily. And again, I speak from experience because once you get writing, once you get started, and you don't want to stop, you can slip back into old habits, which is why it's always important, as you were pointing out, CJ, go back and look at that work, read over it, or have it read aloud to you, and and go back and make those corrections. But like I said, once you get into that habit of writing an active voice, it's not to say that you don't. It's not to say that you don't occasionally slip back into passive, but to become less and less common, and it becomes easier to do. So it's
Well,
really
and what's
the climb.
well, and what's really funny is when you start to see and fix your own habits, you will start to see it in other people's writing, and it will start
Exactly.
to annoy the tar out of you too. It will just be like, "Oh, make it stop,"
What
'cause you'll
annoys me is best-selling authors
yeah,
who do that.
yeah, and
It's
it's like, it, and you see it in your own, and you try to correct it in your own, and then you pick up this book, which is like a best-selling book, and it's just like you read it, and you're just like, "Oh, no, can I go in here and fix this? Can I make this stop?" And it's annoying.
I will say that some authors um, deliberately use words that we might consider passive because they have some sort of twist or aspect of what they're writing uh, that the passive form is exactly what they wanted at that point in what they were
Mhm.
writing. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, you once you become a polished enough writer that you can actually do those kinds of things, it just makes you a better writer. But it doesn't mean that you can't deliberately uh, create a sort of passive situation using passive terms, terminology, whatever, because it gives you the exact effect you wanted from the passage or thing you were writing.
Mhm. Yeah, when you learn to use the tools properly, for example, if you are doing a flashback and you start to send them back, you will start with passive and then you move
Yeah.
back into active once you're in the passive point.
And that is
because
a good
you
point.
take them back, but then you put them back. Since you've taken them back to that point in time, you need to go back and immerse them back into that point. You're
That's a
not
good
going to
point
tell
too.
them about it. You're going to take them back there, but then you're going to put them into that situation again. So when you learn to use your tools properly, you can take them back to that dream, but you're going to still immerse them into that particular situation. You're not going to keep them passive.
Right. That's a really good point, CJ, because if you are retelling something that happened in the past,
Hmm.
or you're regaling you're retelling a tale or something that has already happened, it's almost impossible. In fact, it would be confusing if you didn't use had, was, were, something like that. I think another thing, in my opinion anyway, that can lead to passive writing is is extraneous writing, where you keep saying the same things over and over again, or you say something and it takes you a paragraph or even a full page to finally finish it, when if you could have done it in a paragraph or a sentence, your writing would have been much more active and powerful. And I think that slipping into those kind of word salad moments
Hmm.
where you're gushing words, but you're really like a car stuck in the mud and your wheels are spinning, but you're not getting any traction. That's because you're using too much verbiage to say what you could have easily said in a more compact way. And I especially think that is true nowadays because your readers, and we've talked about this before, readers today, particularly younger readers, they just don't have the patience that readers did 20 or 30 years ago.
No,
They
they
get
don't
to
want
the
these
point.
books. They want these books.
They want you to get to the point sooner. In fact, now,
Hmm.
not 3 pages later. So that's something I mean, you have to, if it's what the readers want and you want to sell books, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to write the way that whether it's the genre or the style in which they like to read.
Hmm. A lot of them want series books. A lot of them want books that are like the micro books. A lot of them want, small bite books. A lot of them want audio books. A lot of them, it's the microwave generation. It's the cater to your audience, Mombi says. Exactly. It's You do still have some of those older generations that want the longer books, but not anymore. A lot of them want the smaller books. So if you are writing a series, write smaller segments in those books and make it a longer series.
If you can write, I think you can write longer books, but
As
you do have
Trevor says, gotta have it now.
you can write longer books, but it's very difficult to keep a reader's interest
Mhm.
when your book is 500, 600, 800 pages long.
They're not going to dive. It's gonna be rare to find a reader who will dive into a book that's that thick
I don't
anymore.
even, I don't, they'll be like, I think it's like vampires. A reader sees a book that's 3 inches thick, it's like a vampire avoiding light.
Hmm.
They're not going to go near that book. Now, there are exceptions to that. I meet people
Like
all the
I said,
time.
if somebody brings me a book like that, I'm like, break that sucker into a trilogy. I'm like, just turn it into a
Yeah,
trilogy, turn it into something. They want the smaller books. They want the 99-cent books. So break it up. You have
I've
series
met
going on.
exceptions to that, but exceptions don't sell books.
Mm-mm.
Okay, most people nowadays books that are fascinating.
Mombi put a bunch of bats for vampires.
But I mean, but it's true, But I don't want to, I don't want to give the impression before the podcast is over that just because you write a longer book, that means it's not any good or that no one will want to read it or buy it. That's not true. It's just the longer your book, if you're just in generally speaking, the longer the book, the harder it is to keep it active and not losing the reader. Now I'm reading a book right now called The Fourth Wing, which is a huge bestseller, and I got the hardback, and it's probably 2 to 3 inches thick. But I'm going to give it a try, and so far I like it. Uh, you know, but
That's an exception to the rule, though.
right,
Generally speaking, most people will not pick up a book that thick, um, to be honest.
I won't.
Yeah. Most people won't do it. Even
Do it.
that's why is it Vela? Vela, where they're
Yeah.
starting to do like the chapters,
Yes.
they want to try it first. That's why Amazon has started giving away like the small samples of like the 3 chapters, because people want to try it first to see if they're going to like it. And they're not going to go for books that are going to be like 300 and 400 pages long. They want the small, like average 250, 275 is actually a pretty good size average book that people are willing to go ahead and, yeah, I can do that. That
Yeah.
size book is usually
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
you want to, either way you want to do it, you want to keep them as a writer, you want to keep them in the current time frame, whatever it is. Show, don't tell. Try not to pull them out of the story with passive voice. Try to keep them in the story. Sometimes you have to go back. Just try to keep them as much into the story as you can.
Just think of it like you're following a road map, and the signs on the road tell you the speed limit and the road number, and hopefully the next stop, the next city. If you see if you use a lot of passive terms like was, had, were, if you have if your writing is populated with a lot of adverbs, ly words, if if you have gratuitive use of the word that and this and as, uh, you know, you are definitely going down the road of passivity in your writing, and it's not a formula for active writing.
Hmm.
So, again, just use those signposts to give you alerts if that's something a writer is lapsing into.
Pretty much. Well, thank you guys for watching today. We're talking about passive and versus active writing. Next week on July 10th, there will be no book world. The week after, we're going to have Jeanette McDermott. We'll be talking about traditional book club. The week after, we're going to have Robin Joan Carter, A Ghost of a Chance with Magnolia Bluff Paranormal Book. So do not miss the next few weeks. Again, next week we will not have it, but the few weeks after, we're going to have a couple of special guests. So don't miss 4 o'clock, same time, same place. Catch you guys later.